What's going on, guys? It's Brandon here at Brothers of Merit, joined with Taylor. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother? How's it going, guys?
It's good, man. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
So we got Luke Rogers in the house for you tonight. Awesome interview. We got a lot from it, and the things he's been through. It was just amazing to listen to some of the stories that he had. So, but before we get into that, Taylor, hit him with a little bit of routine housekeeping and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a ton of fun. But yeah, like Brandon said, we're going to go through some housekeeping here first. First and foremost, as always, we just want to say thank you. We have got an incredible amount of support over the past couple weeks, and so we just want to say thank you. The blessings that are coming out of that God is pouring out. I feel like every day me and Brandon text each other and say, God is good. Like, this is great. So thank you for rating and reviewing us on iTunes, for telling your friends about us, for being engaged and buying in on what's happening here, because God's doing some pretty cool things, and it's really cool that we all and you all get to be a part of it. So we just want to say thanks. So with that, we also wanted to call out our social media, because there's a lot of stuff that happens there outside of the podcast. So if you are a man listening to this, we have a closed Facebook group. We've mentioned it in last week's episode with Jeremy about it's only closed because there's no girls allowed. It's not because it's like a sacred group of people that we know or anything. This is for any and all men that want to look more like Jesus, and it's a place where we can post questions that we have that we're just trying to wrap things out with each other. None of us have it figured out, but we're looking for advice. We're looking to share encouragement. We're looking to encourage each other as men to look as much like Jesus as we can. So that's just one place that we've created a platform for that to happen. So if you're on Facebook, find us. You can find us at Brothers of Merit by searching that group. And if you are a male, we'll let you in. And there's a lot of great stuff that happens there.
If you're a woman, we will not.
Exactly. And then the other thing is also make sure you follow us on Instagram as well. We do it. That's probably our main source of where we get information out. So if we have a giveaway, we are going to post about that there. We're going to post the winners there. We're going to have information about upcoming guests on the podcast, on ways that you can get involved, groups that we're going to be forming, that we're going to be doing in the future, anything that aligns with our mission news-wise. Instagram's going to be the way to find that. So make sure you give us a follow over there and tell your friends about it there. That's brothers_of_merit. So with that, we also just wanted to take this housekeeping, and this is our 10th episode, so the train's rolling a little bit. There's a little bit of momentum, and we're not just starting, and we got to have our feet wet a little bit, and so we wanted to just kind of peel the curtain back, and we wanted to let people in from the very beginning. We wanted to start to establish kind of that trust from the get-go. So at Brothers of Merit, what me and Brandon say, what our mission is, what we've established our mission is to inspire men to step towards brotherhood through Christ. I mean, that is our goal. That's the goal for everything that we do here. Every person that we bring on to interview, every question that we try to ask them, every post that we do, everything that we ask of you guys listening is with that goal in mind, and is to reach as many men as possible. So we just wanted to be transparent about that, to let you know that that's the goal. So if we ever ask to rate and review us on iTunes, the whole goal there is wholly and honestly 100% is so that more men can find out about it and Absolutely. More men can hear it. If we ask you to tell your friends and share us on social media, again, the same thing. It's because we want as many men as possible to hear about us, and we want to get out and we want to share what we feel like God has tasked us with here at Brothers of Merit, and grow this brotherhood and reach as many men as absolutely possible. We have some big goals and big kind of visions of what that's going to look like. We're not going to go into all that there, but we just wanted to let you know that for the people that have bought in already and that are invested already. We wanted to kind of let you know that's our goal, that's our plan, and as part of brotherhood and part of accountability, if you ever are listening or you're seeing us do stuff that you don't feel like lines up with that plan, call us on it. That's accountability. You can send us both an email. It's our names at brothersmerit.com. Shoot us a DM. Be like, hey, I don't know if that's, whatever. And we can have a conversation about that. That's because that's what we're about. We want to be transparent. We want to just grow this, with however God wants it to be. And so, yeah, Brandon, I think, is going to go into a little bit of that, and then we'll cut into Luke Rogers here.
Yeah. So basically, Taylor and I aren't quite sure the future as in what we want to achieve. We are kind of looking at, we don't know if it's going to be materialized. We don't know what it's going to be. It's in God's hands, but we want to just get it from the start that everything that we're doing, the mission is to reach more men and have them seek brotherhood through Christ. So we kind of want to attempt to have groups, you know what I mean? Like brotherhood, to have groups of men together face to face, not just through, Facebook and Instagram. So we're not quite sure where that's going to take us, but we are confident that we're going to get there someday. We're just letting you guys in on to stay tuned, keep following us, keep being with us by our sides, and we promise we will keep giving you the best content that we can from the best guys that we think deserve to provide you that content. That, Taylor and I really enjoy having men on this show that can provide you guys with the content that we think you need, but also we need, because we are growing just as you all are growing. So with that, we got Luke Rogers on this episode. He was an awesome interview. He really dug into his testimony and told us about his times, when he was in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, and the things he's seen, and from going from a multi-million-dollar business to in 3 months having nothing, and how God was there, and how he seeked him, and with his Client for Captives, how he's been involved with that, and how that has inspired him to seek Christ even more. So with that, we're going to get into it. It's a little lengthy. It's about 50 to 55 minutes, so it's a little longer than our normal ones, but we just loved having him, and our conversation just flowed. So we just kept rolling. He was all for it. Super humble guy, super just fun to talk with, and provided a lot of things that Taylor and I thought about after the episode, like, wow, that was awesome. So
yeah, it was a ton of fun. Luke, hopefully you're listening to this. Thanks.
Yeah, man.
It was awesome. Yeah, we had a ton of fun, and we just felt like the content was great. And like Brandon said, it's a little longer than usual, but there's a ton of meat, especially at the very end. Not to just tease that out, but stick around to the very end because there's a lot of really, really good stuff. I feel like God's going to do a lot of really cool things from it. I know that all three of us, me, Brandon, and Luke, afterwards came out of the interview and said, that was encouraging. My soul was filled up after that. So it was a really, really fun interview. A lot of really, really cool stuff. So yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll send it in.
Let's take it in.
We'll see you on the other side.
All right. All righty. Mr. Luke Rogers in the house. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Happy to be on the show. You guys, I've become a quick fan of what you're doing and your message, and I'll get into it a little later, but I actually have a similar idea just to what you were doing, what you guys are up to, just sort of a different take on it. I think the brotherhood thing is so important. But I have anyway, we'll get into what I'm working on someday. But yeah, dude, glad to be here. Good to see your faces outside of Instagram. And I'm looking forward to talking.
Yeah, definitely. And believe it or not, this is actually Taylor and I's first video interview, because we've been using another app that was just for our voices. And we finally got it figured out and tuned into where we can see you and record you at the same time, so I can edit it better. So we're stoked. So yeah, Luke, just for our listeners, let's get it off by kind of give us a quick, testimony about who you are, what you've done in your life, and where God has come into your life, and what you can tell them about yourself.
Sure. I'm originally from Northern California. I live in Nashville now. I've been in Nashville for 5 years. I grew up kind of all around Northern California, but Chico is home. If you guys know where Chico is, it's pretty close to where the big campfire fire was this last year. Luckily, my parents, their house wasn't taken. They had to be evacuated possibly. That's another whole other side story. They didn't get evacuated, but that's a point of reference. That's where I grew up. I stayed in Chico for my undergrad. It was pre-med. But, when you're a sophomore in college and they ask you, you're supposed to pick what you do for the rest of your life, it's not... I thought my dad's a chiropractor, and I thought, I'll go to medicine. I'm smart enough to do this. And so it took me about 4.5 years. And when I finished, it was the same time of the year or it was December of 2004, I finished and graduated. And so I spent about 9 months after I graduated college in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which was a huge culture shock for a kid from California. It stayed under 10 degrees for about 2 weeks. And when I was there, I took the MCAT, because I was going to go to med school, right? So I studied for about 6 months, which is awful. But I did pretty well in the MCAT, and I was burned out, guys. I was super, super burned just on studying books, whatever it was. I needed some time off. Didn't want to jump into med school. And I kind of had this sort of conflicting, maybe just an uneasiness in my heart about med school. And I think the reason I initially thought about doing it was I knew I could do it. Like I could do the science classes, I could do the physics was tough, guys, but the chem stuff I could do all that, and except for OChem, that was tough. But I got through it, and I scored high on my MCAT score. I could pretty much go to any med school that I wanted to. But I don't think my heart was in it, so I decided I was gonna somewhat selfishly leave Green Bay in January. I wanted to get out of there, and I ended up moving to Australia when I was 23 years old. I decided to spend a year of my life for God and hoping that God would show me what He wanted me to do. So I went out there with YWAM, did a DTS, Youth with a Mission. DTS is discipleship training school. So I went to school on the Sunshine Coast, a little town called Maroochydore in Australia. One of the best times of my entire life. I don't think I wore a shirt or shoes for about 6 of those months.
That's a bit of a change from Wisconsin when it's -10, right?
Oh, dude, you don't even know, man. I got dropped into Australia. They lost my bag, so I borrowed some like shorts and met everybody. We met on the beach that day. And me being like a pale white kid and not thinking that all of a sudden it's gonna be 90 degrees in Australia, I had like the worst sunburn like day one there.
Oh man.
Because it's the middle of the summer. January's in the middle of the summer there. So anyway, long story short, we spent 6 months doing discipleship training school, which is essentially like Bible school, just a little more intense. And a little more cursory since you're not like doing a 2-year or 4-year program. It's about a 6-month program. And then we went to Southeast Asia and did service projects. So I spent a month in the Philippines, and I spent a little more than a month in Thailand. And it was just a crazy adventure, man. I turned 24 when I was out there, and I was the old guy, if you can imagine that. And everybody else was younger because I did it after college. A lot of people did that at 18, 19. After high school, between college, and there's people that were kind of tweeners there, but I was older than our leaders. But it was an amazing year, and not to gloss over it all, but I saw God heal people like in front of my eyes in the Philippines. I saw it happen in Thailand. I lived in an orphanage for about a month in northern Thailand with about 16 kids. I'm just a dumb kid, didn't know what I was doing, and we were just trying to help however we could. And we played soccer with the kids and the monks from the Buddhist monastery down the street about every day. Me and a couple of the guys built an extra room onto the orphanage, and we didn't, I hadn't ever built anything. I just knew that you put some studs together. I saw Bob Vila do it, and that's an old reference. But I saw, I could do this, man. It was super rewarding. Like I think about it now, and half the time I didn't even have a bed. We slept on concrete floors, blankets and pillows, and I have some really like probably off-color stories about some stuff that happened out there. Insect bites in the wrong places. But it was an amazing adventure, and God really opened my eyes to like the privilege that and the blessings that He's given us sort of in the first world, and the perspective of how it's these people that really don't have anything seem so much more happy than we do over here in the States, and they really don't have anything, but they're willing to give you everything as well because you were their guest. And really they relied on God. Like I think it's a difference in the developing world, or the third world. People really don't have another option. Like I think in America we try to give ourselves outs, right? We give God an out. Like, hey God, this would be great if praying, God, it'd be great if you could do X, Y, Z for me. And you're like, but if that doesn't work out, God doesn't work out, and I already have my backup plan for some of these people didn't have another plan. There was a couple that we prayed for, and they had a couple kids. The guy had a stroke and been paralyzed, hadn't spoken a word, and hadn't moved the right side of his body in about 3 months. So we had, I don't even know where to start with this story, but like it was just a bad day for me. I didn't want to follow the rules that day. They made us wear pants in Asia, which is stupid because nobody wears pants, and it's like 100 degrees, 100% humidity. And I'm older than my leaders, and I said, look, I'm wearing shorts today. Everybody in this whole country wears shorts, and we look like idiots wearing pants. And I'm sweating. I don't want to be sweaty like that. And so they said, oh, well, we're going to send you home. And so I said, okay, send me home. You guys won't do it. You're not going to drive me to the airport. We got stuff to do today. For wearing pants, they're like, what's the rules, man? We can send you home. I was like, all right, do it. You're going to embarrass yourself. So I'm going to go back to the base. I'm going to take a hot shower. I'm going to tell everybody how dumb you guys are for sending me home, more or less. So, I'm kind of being a little rebellious. And we used to do these outreaches, right? This is the whole day I saw this thing happen. We did this outreach, and I decided not to do my part because that was a stupid play we did. And I thought it was so dumb. And I didn't want to sing the songs. I didn't want to be in the play. I thought it was all dumb. I'm just going to sit here and pout and be about Luke that day. And then what we do is usually do an outreach where we play with the kids, do a little play because there's a language barrier. We had a translator, but we did a little play that you could kind of understand. Gospel message, and then we tell at the very end, we say, we believe the God of the Bible is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if God healed people in the Bible, and if God said that you will do the things that Jesus did and even greater things, then we believe that God can heal you, and we'll pray for that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. We'll pray for that. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to sit this out too. I'm not really feeling this today, guys. I don't really want to participate. So I'm sitting there, and one of the girls comes and says, hey, can you come with us? I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll go in this house. And it was this family, right? So the guy's laying on a bed. He sits in a chair in the middle of the room, and his wife doesn't speak English. And so she's telling our translator this. He's had a stroke, and he can't support the family. He can't speak. He can't move the right side of his body. And to be honest, dudes, I sat there and I was like, you know what, guys? Like, in my head, I'm saying out loud because I'm not that big of a jerk. But I was like, I don't really care. Like, if I'm really honest, I don't really care. Like, tomorrow I'll be in another village talking to more people, and I'll forget about it. And it just, dude, if I'm having selfish Luke Dad, I just don't really care if this dude, like, sounds harsh, but I think that's reality sometimes. Sometimes we walk by and homeless people are nuisances for us, or like, dude, I had that happen today. I had some homeless guy decide like to peg me out and try to walk with me and shake me down for money when after I left the gym. And I was like, oh man, please don't do this. That's kind of how I think sometimes it is. I was like, Dad, I don't really care. And I remember sitting there being like, God, I want to care though. I really want to care, but I don't. Like, will you let me see him like you see him? And this is crazy, but I swear for like just the most fraction of a second, like God like pulled back the veil. And I was like, dude, it broke me, man. I'm start crying, and I don't cry easily. I'm bawling, and we're praying, and I'm saying, God, like, dude, okay, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, can you heal this guy? And we're all praying for healing, and I'm saying, hey, if there's any blessings you have for me, I don't want them. Give him this guy. I think the whole thing will make sense after this, but literally the dude spoke after we were praying for a while. He spoke the name of Jesus, the first thing he said, and his wife lost it, and she's like hysterically crying. And he stands up and moves his right side of his body. It was like, I still get chills thinking about it today. This happened in front of my eyes. And God healed this guy. And it was because I think sometimes like God likes to be like, oh, you have no other options. There's no other option for you. So watch, I'm the only thing these people have, and watch me do what I do. And that's love people and love my kids. And he did it. And I think it was impactful to me when I tell you all the backstory, because I sat there and I was the worst day of my trip. I was the most selfish. I told God I didn't care about people. I didn't care about what the stupid things we were doing. I didn't care about the guy and his family. And God was able to use, I don't know if it was my prayer or Jeff, the guy next to me, or the girl from Switzerland. It doesn't matter. Like, because I'm going to show you something crazy, and you're for sure know it's not you. So you're not going to get a big head about this, because like you were a POS today. Like you were just a big old turd. And so, yeah, that kind of stuff, I came back from that trip with like completely changed. And it wasn't like God told me, don't go to med school. I just knew like something like set my heart on fire over there. And I wanted to figure out how I could do that, but not ask for money. Like, you raise support when you do that, but maybe be someone who enables that to happen, and then get to do a few of those fun trips. That sounds like a great job, right? Like, I just want to go over there and do some cool stuff with kids and help out and pay for it. But that didn't sound like me being in a white coat and going to med school. So I decided not to go to med school. And because I had a pre-med degree, I knew that wouldn't get me very far. So I went back to school after being home for a year from Australia. And I got my MBA. I've got a master's in business, and did that at San Diego State. Did that for 2 years. When I was there, I started a company my second year of my MBA. It was I had this idea. I had gone to enough football games, and I looked at all the apparel they had, and I was like, man, this stuff sucks. Like, I don't want to wear this. Like, I want to wear something I like, and I love T-shirts. Like, that's I'm a weirdo. I love shoes. Okay, I spend money on two things, and my fiance will back this up. I spend money on bourbon and shoes. And T-shirts aren't expensive, so it doesn't even. And the funny thing is, I don't even hardly drink very often. I just like to have stuff other people don't have. It's very selfish, I know. But I like T-shirts, and I always liked soft T-shirts. This is all before I think it was the thing to have like a tri-blend. Like you had to look to find out. Like American Apparel was the only people that made tri blends, right? And I thought it'd be cool to take this concept and something that like looks nice and feels nice, and then do it, do it on a level where I could wear something I want to wear to a Packers game or to wherever, right? So I had this idea, and we started. I started with 5 guys. It was my brother, Marshawn Lynch. Those guys I knew: Marshawn Lynch, Patrick Willis, Arian Foster was coming off his MVP year, and Devin Hester. And we started this company, and it was in my bedroom. And I basically just said, "Hey guys, I don't have any money, but what I want to do is I want to do player-based stuff, and I want you guys to be involved in the artwork because it's your brand." And really, this came out of the idea like if you go to any game, you see all this bootleg stuff. And none of the guys get paid on it. And they own their likeness. Like regardless of what the NFL has, if you own, and you guys are the same way, and I'm the same way, you own what your name, your number, and what you look like explicitly belongs to you. And for someone else to make money off of any of those 3 things without your permission or without your written permission or a contractual agreement is essentially grounds to sue them. It's illegal. So I thought, hey, here's what we do. We'll shut down all these bootlegs and all the people making stuff in their garage, and we'll let the players be involved in it, and they can kind of build a brand. And long story short, I did it for about a year, and then we got a Target deal, and all of a sudden they wanted us to have 32 dudes. And then the next year we were in 2,200 Target stores with an NFLPA license, a Major League Baseball license, Major League Baseball Players Association license. And in the span of this, I did about 120 individual licensing deals, which were anyone from like Muhammad Ali. This is like before Roots of Fight. It was Muhammad Ali. I had the Vince Lombardi estate. Bart Starr, Jerry Rice, one of my favorites, Christian Okoye. We had all these old like guys that I loved. We had the Babe Ruth estate. We had the Ty Cobb estate. All these old baseball players, old football players. We had UFC fighters before they were doing shirts. We had Ken Shamrock. I did a deal with Ken Shamrock. He's a nut job. Did a deal with Ken Shamrock. We did a deal with Hoist Gracie. All these things like back in the day, and I partnered with a guy in Nashville. And I was living in San Diego, and so I was running this company and started this company, and we were doing well. We just grew exponentially fast. And my partner did the production. I did the licensing deals, and I kind of did the artwork conceptions, and then we had designers that did the design. So for 6 years did this, moved to Nashville because it grew so much that I couldn't be on the West Coast, and he couldn't be on Central Time, and we didn't feel like we could be effective. So we had an office space, did all this cool stuff. Like, it's the entrepreneurial dream.
Yep.
And then it fell apart in 3 months, man. We had a $10 million PO with Target. Our buyer, and so we work with the national buyer of Team Sports. And he has a huge checkbook and buys everything for Team Sports in every single Target store. And we had an exclusive deal with Target, so we didn't go anywhere else. We were on the hook with the NFL for $800,000 a year in minimum guarantees. But it's not really that much when you're doing $10 million at retail gross, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, our buyer was our biggest champion, and he got promoted. And Target's super weird, man. They take a lot of young people, and they give them really big budgets, and they give them these buying jobs. And when they promote you, they just kind of move you laterally. Our buyer got promoted to buying board games. It doesn't make sense. His boss then,
No,
she also got promoted, and mostly was because of our program, which kind of changed things. She got promoted, and she went and did something else. I don't know what she did. They brought a guy in who bought ice cream the year before, and he is now a national team sports buyer. And he came in and he said, "Oh, this $10 million PO? Yeah, we're only going to pay you for 1.7 because I changed my mind." And I said, "Oh, well, we have a contract, buddy."
Right.
And he goes, "Yeah, well, you should just sue us then." He's like, "By the time this thing goes to court, you won't have a company. So you're going to take 1.7 or are you going to sue us?" And I said, "Oh, man, that's real unfortunate." So we tried to make it work on that. The NFLPA said, "We're not budging." So if you have a 1.7 million now, this is just math, and 800,000 of that is a minimum guarantee, and 1.7 is gross, and your margins are super slim at retail. You're not making like you would online. You can make up $16, $15, $14 a shirt online. You're talking like $2 a shirt, like maybe.
Yep.
So essentially, we had no company in the span of 3 months. NFLPA in the middle of this calls us and says, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're not changing our contract, but we just did sell all of the online selling rights to Fanatics. So everything you have to sell online, you now have to liquidate in the next 6 months, and you can't sell online after that." And I said, "Okay, can we open more channels? We'll take it out of our exclusive." We got our exclusive. I got deals situated with Dick's, Hibbett's, Lids. Their stores in which is in Macy's, I think. Macy's in 8 different spots, Big Five, like all these different sporting goods places. Academy Sports for the people in the South. And they said, no, to all of them. And in 3 months, I went from when you value a company, it's like 5X your sort of cash flow. Sometimes it's 10X, depends if you're getting purchased. I mean, essentially it was like a $50 million company that I started in my bedroom. In 3 months, it was all gone. In the last 2 years, I'd reinvested everything that we made into the company. So I didn't pay myself for 2 years and watched it all fall apart, like fall between my hands. And I essentially had to start over. This would have been in 15. So I stayed in Nashville. I wanted to be in Nashville anyway. This was like the impetus for me to get here was my company. But I had been coming to Nashville for 5 years before that, wanting to be here just because I love the people, the community. I liked the church I went to here. Everyone's nice in the South. I was living in Southern California where no one cares about anybody but themselves. All my neighbors weren't nice. And it's not somewhere I wanted to like have a family. I had, I'm a pretty friendly dude, but I had only like a handful of friends there because just aren't good people. And I had more friends in Nashville. I didn't even live here. So I stayed here. I worked for CBS Sports for 2 years. I had to make a quick move, and there's a company here that sold to CBS. It was 24/7 Sports. They still exist. CBS owns them. They do recruiting stuff for college football. And then I built the NFL program with one other guy. Now it's bigger than the entire recruiting thing. Did it for 2 years and just didn't feel like, I just knew I needed a job that paid me. And I did that, and it just wasn't my passion. They paid me to do TV for an hour and a half and then play on Twitter for 6.5 hours. And it was a massive waste of my life. So I left. And I've been working, I have an MBA. I think I'm a pretty smart dude. I built a company. But when you put that on a resume, it doesn't translate to a lot of experience, like if I want to work a job that I don't create myself. So I've been working in tech for the last year. I'm a director of business development for an emerging tech company that does fiber networking for commercial buildings. It's not my passion, but it gives me a sort of a semblance of freedom. And I have a family, in a sense. I'm getting married in April, so the security of having, working for the man as opposed to being the entrepreneur is you trade off. But it's a good industry. It's interesting, man. It makes me think, and it challenges me, and I wanted that. Sports wasn't challenging. Sports was at CBS. I'm talking about was easy, man. Like, I mean, here's the thing: you want to feel like your life's important, and this is kind of something I've been going through lately. Is like, we have a calling, right? And I was listening to Stephen Furtick talking about your calling, and I like to listen to sermons and podcasts when I'm driving around. And for a lot of us, maybe not a lot of us, for a lot of us, though, I don't think that's really ever crystal clear, and we kind of just try to do the best we can with what's in front of us. And here's something I also believe, and you guys may disagree because Taylor, I know you work for Under Armour, and we have the future fire drill sergeant of America here. But, I don't think necessarily a lot of people get to your passion, your calling doesn't always equal your vocation. And I think that's a big misconception, is that, like, especially in America where we have so much opportunities, that you have to make your passion into your vocation. Or if you follow your dreams and your passion, that the money's going to follow. Well, that is true for some people, and it does work out. But I think a lot of us have to figure out how to build this pie that's our lives and plug our vocation and our passion in and make those things work together. And that's kind of where I'm at. So, I mean, I just gave you 36 years of my life, but
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my. I mean, that's kind of my testimony. I guess my testimony, if I was to be way more specific, is that when I was 17 years old, this predates all those college stories I gave you. When I was 17 years old, I got cut from the senior basketball team, and I was the best player on the team. I just led our summer tournament in scoring. I was a good basketball player. My brothers both played football. I was too tall and skinny. I grew 2 inches in college and got muscles, and I was like, where was this when I needed it? Maybe I would have done something and not been like a 6'2", 6'3" white post player from Northern California. I'm a guard the next level. I didn't have to learn how to dribble. What is all this, But I got cut, and that was kind of my identity. And I dealt with a lot of depression that year, and like I just got hit real rock bottom in high school. And I was raised in a Christian home, and we went to a non-denominational church in Chico called Neighborhood Church. And I went to youth group because there was girls there, and because my parents made me. But I think when I was about 17, I felt so low that I just didn't know what I was going to do. It was just like I hit rock. And it sounds dumb because it was basketball, but at the time it was so monumental for me. I got cut. I basically got cut because the coach told me he didn't like me. He didn't tell the assistant coaches he was cutting me. It was the last day of practice, and everybody had their sit down. And the two assistant coaches came up to me the next week and said that this is the worst thing they've ever been a part of in high school sports. That's really a consolation prize when you're 17. You're saying, why am I not playing? I just led and we played in 5 tournaments, and I was on the all-tournament team in 4 of them, and I led our team in scoring the entire summer. So when that's taken away, then it was really, I feel like God gave me a hug at my very lowest, and my faith really became mine then at 17. And then it's a journey. I mean, life is ups and downs from, going to Australia and being on a mountaintop spiritually to coming back and, watching my company 10 years later, a little less than 10 years later, just, what my dream crash and burn in 3 months when you spend 6 years building it, and then trying to pick up the pieces. And it's funny though, man, you guys, you look back and you go, man, God's never really let me down. No, he really hasn't. He's always had a plan. And I'm in a position now vocationally too, even that I don't know what my plan is necessarily. I know the things that I love. I love, the things I love and what set me on fire. But I know who's going with me. And that, I think is maybe some of the most important questions you'll answer as a man is you may not know where you're going, but knowing who you're going with, that's just as important. More important, I would say. And, I know I'm going with Jesus, number one. And now I have a fiance, love of my life, and it's going with me. And I'm convinced that us 3 can go anywhere and get through anything. And, it doesn't always mean that it's, man, I think people sometimes even in our country think that like following Jesus means that you're going to get, Joel Osteen, you're going to get rich, right? That couldn't be farther from the truth. I think it's actually harder to follow Jesus and live that way than it is to not. Life is going to be a little bit harder, I think. And I think that big misconception is that when you're a Christian, God's going to make you rich and make things easier. And I don't think he does that. I think he makes things more fulfilling. I think he makes things more beautiful. And God only promised us that he would give us life to the full. That was my favorite verse. I have a tattoo, John 10:10. It's in Latin. It's on my side. In that verse, this is the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I came to bring you life and life to the full. And that's Jesus speaking. And that came out of his mouth. And he kind of he gives you a dichotomy of life and says, look, there's an enemy. There's an enemy to your soul and to your life. And his whole goal is to steal the things from you and to kill and to destroy your life, your heart, your family, and all that. But he said, but I came to bring you life. And didn't say, this is what I think is interesting about Jesus. He didn't say I came to die for your sins. Didn't say that's why he came. He said, I came to bring you life and life to the full. And if he's our savior, I think it's important to remember that while he did stand in the gap for our sins, and that is the most important thing in resurrected, he came back after 3 days. That is the most important event in the history of man. Jesus knew his mission here. The finality of that wasn't the fulfillment of his mission. The fulfillment of his mission was to show us how to live and how to live to the fullest. And I think that's something I want to remember, is that his concentration was on the destination. He knew where he was going, and he knew that he didn't want to. Even at the end, he said, Father, is there any way you take this cup from me? Take it. He was fully God, but fully man. And he knew what he had to do, but it didn't mean that he necessarily embraced it with open arms. You know what I'm saying? He willingly laid down his life, but it didn't mean it didn't suck for him, right? And so I think it's just an interesting thing to think about, is that maybe, just maybe, we all have a chance to live, to the full if we fully follow Jesus. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you and I get to drive Ferraris, and I don't drive cars anyway. Raptors. I'd love to have a Raptor. Or whatever, right? It just doesn't mean that. Going full circle though, coming back to that, is the fact that maybe the most fulfilled and happy people I've ever been around in my entire life had nothing. They had nothing. And yet they just were full of joy. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, except that the perspective on that is paradigm shattering. It's not even shifting, it's shattering. You just don't realize what we don't know. And I also think that's why God moves in the way he does overseas. And people talk about, well, why doesn't it happen here? I don't know. I think people people don't have any choice but to ask God to do the miraculous. They don't have 401ks. They don't have insurance policies. You don't have a safety net or a plan B. There isn't a plan B. And I think that's the way God wants us sometimes to be like, hey, you don't need a plan B. You can put me in a box. So, I mean, essentially, that's my testimony. It's like, I don't know where I'm going necessarily. I know who I'm going with, and I know that God is faithful. I know I've seen God do miraculous things with my own eyes, and there was a woman in the Philippines old woman, this is one more story, then I'll let you get to your next question, but who had rheumatoid arthritis, so deformed hands. Like you've seen them, but people's hands are just gnarled, right? There's gnarly hands, and she wanted to get prayed for, and I wasn't involved in this one. I just saw it from it was like looking over and like, whoa, okay. Prayed for this woman, gnarly hands, stretches out her fingers, and it's gone. Like deformities, arthritis gone, and this lady flipped like. And what she do? This is one of the most interesting thing. She was babbling on in Tagalog. I think that's the native language in the Philippines. And she turned and she went out and she started laying hands on people and praying for them. Like, I mean, immediately after her healings is praying for the same thing for other people. Anyway, I mean, it's funny, man. I'm 36 years old. I'll be 37 in April, 4 days after we get married. And that was right now we're talking 12 years ago, but it's funny how I don't know how it is for you guys, but when God does the miraculous, I think the time and then also I think the enemy in some ways likes to erode those memories and those mountaintops and say, man, maybe it didn't really happen like you thought it happened. Are you remembering that correctly? Like, like no, I saw it, man. I saw a guy speak, and the first thing he said was the name of Jesus. And I saw a lady stretch out her hands, and the deformities were gone. And I saw a man that couldn't move his body. Yeah, that'll change your life in some ways, man. I think the thing I wish is that you could bottle that up and drink it every morning with your breakfast, and be reminded that I'm going out and doing what I have to do, but there's a God that cares enough to touch his people and physically change, like the miraculous happen in the sense of biological, scientifically, there's no explanation. And God said, I care about this guy and his family, and I care about his kids not having to do laundry. I care about this family not going under. And sometimes all you gotta do is ask, man. I care about this woman in her hands because I love her as much as I love you, and I care about my kids. And the Bible says that if you ask your father for a fish, he's not going to give you a snake. If you ask him for a loaf of bread, he's not going to give you a rock. And Jesus speaking, he said, if your earthly father does that for you, then how much more does your heavenly Father desire to give to you? And I think sometimes we forget that I have a great dad, and that's not the. I know for a lot of people that isn't reality, but I do, and I know that if I asked my dad for something, he would do his best to do whatever it was to give it for me. But I think we forget that God is our Father, and that if your earthly dad would do that for you, your heavenly Father wants to do that for you. But the thing is, it's just like a dad. He's not going to give you something he knows isn't good for you. I think this is oftentimes where our faith gets chopped up or held up, is that, man, God, why didn't you give me what I asked for? And I think we don't understand that God knows better. And if someday your kids are going to ask you for something, you're going to be like, no, because you're not going to give them what they asked for because it's not good for them. So anyway, that's the story.
That's super, super powerful stuff. I know, like, over here, like, you could hear a pin drop through like 98% of that. It was just awesome. And I think the cool part about it, because one of the things that I was going to say, like, specifically when you're talking about that guy who you saw healed right in front of your eyes, like, you're like getting to see the Bible come to life. I mean, I have two girls, and I read them their like little children's Bible before they go to bed every night. And we just read the story of when Jesus healed the lame man, when his friends, like, to tie it into Brotherhood a little bit, when his friends dropped him through the roof. And like, that's the Bible. Like, the stuff that Jesus did when he walked on the earth, like, he's still doing that same stuff today. Like you said, like, he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He's the same as he was back then. That same spirit and power that conquered death is still alive. And that's awesome that you got to see it. It's incredibly powerful.
I think the one thing I bemoan about, and about those stories is that they're not new. And this is been my prayer for God with God lately has been like, I want new stories. Like I was 24 years old when I saw that, and I will tell that story forever. Because those are like those miracles. I don't take those for granted. But and that'll be my prayer for y'all too, is that God gives you new stories, because it's the fresh fire, I think, that can stokes. And if my story stokes something, great, but I keep asking God for new stories. Like I want new stuff. Not that the old ones aren't great, because they are, but the new ones would be. I want to see God move now and here in Nashville and Maryland with you guys. Like I want to see those things happen. And I know they do, man. I hear about things, and it's interesting too. Like I was one of those guys that was like, man, you know what? Like you sit in church and they talk, missionaries come in, because we were CMA church, it was a Christian Missionary Alliance, so we had missionaries we sponsored that would come back and tell the stories, and I'm like, man, I want to see that. I don't know if I can believe that necessarily and I got to see it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm a horse's batoot. What's your next question, man? Before I gobble up 3 hours of y'all's time here.
No, you're good.
No, you're good. I mean, sorry to into the question. One more thing about that. I love that. That's one of the things that specifically with our like Brothers of Merit group that like Brandon talked about, that we have like a group of guys that we get together, is like when we ask each other every week, like, what's God teaching you, or like, what are you seeing? I mean, if you're coming back every week for even 2-3 months with the same thing, like, oh, he's teaching me about, whatever. I need to trust him more. Like if you're saying the same thing, or like, I just read Acts 1, like, brother, you need to do more. Like we need to let God infuse every day.
I agree. You're completely, and I think that's the basis of a relational God God wants that. He wants that daily walk, and I'm bad at it too, man. Just like anybody else, you get caught up in everything else, dude. Just work and stress. We're planning a wedding, man, and it's like between that and 36, trying not to be fat, and dude, there's a lot, and I think God wants us. God wants to be a priority, and He wants to be a part of it. He wants us to ask Him about situational things, and I think I can tell you this, man. Some of the most fulfilling times I had in my life was coming off of those mountaintops and really just spending my days. Sounds crazy, but kind of talking to God as I went through my day, and it's crazy what God will do, man, if you're in tune to listen. Tell you things about people, tell you to pray for things with people, and it makes you feel crazy. And then God backs it up, and you're like, okay, man, I'm not weirdo dude right now, but I just read somebody's mail. I've been in college a couple times, and I'm not like I'm not going to stand on a corner and be the big evangelist. That really isn't definitely not how I operate. I know one of the things you all want to talk about was climbing hoods. And when we get to that story, there was a guy on that trip who like taught his kids to pray. Prays for people in Walmart and they get healed. And he sends me videos. And he's like, well, this is so and so, and his 4-year-old daughter. He's like, she prayed and his knee pain went away. And I'm like, bro, you have some kind of cojones, man, to be in Walmart asking people, what, anything hurt? And you kind of limping. What can we pray for you? And then but dude, stuff happens. It's wild, man. It's like, yeah. Ask me questions now, because I feel like I'm just hijacking this whole thing. Like we're going in a big old circle here.
Nah, you're fine. We're in no time limit, and we just want to hear what you have to say and what you've experienced and what the guys that listen to us could learn from it. You know what I mean? Okay. So don't worry about time at all. We're just laid back and loving every minute of this. So you could, if we want to hit on the next one about the climb for the captives.
Sure. Dude, it's kind of an amazing story, actually. I like to fly fish, and I don't get to do a whole lot of that in Nashville. And a good friend of mine took me to Montana. And we went on a fly fishing trip on the Missouri, which was a dream of mine because I love a river runs through it. It's like one of my favorite movies ever. And it's not the little Blackfoot, I think, is the one from the movie. This is the Missouri, and it's like there's 6,000 fish every I don't even know, cubic mile. It has to do with volume, but essentially there's a lot of fish. And we did a 3-day float there, and it was fantastic. And after that, the guy my buddy Rick, he at the time was living in Spokane, so we went back to Washington, and he had meetings in Seattle, and I went to Seattle because I have some friends up there, like in the music business. And then I was this is before I went to work in my current job, and I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do at this point. And so I was meeting with whoever would take meetings with me, and one of this was this dude Jeremy Vollerand, and this guy, I met him, and the whole thing was like, you have a great sports network, and here's what we do. We work with human trafficking. And they kind of just laid it out for me. It's like, there's more people in slavery right now than there are in the entire history of mankind. So if you added up all the people who've been slaves from the beginning of time to now, there are more right now than there were in that entire stretch of recorded history. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. And the biggest trafficking day in the United States domestically is Super Bowl weekend. And so there was a big connect for me. It was like, okay, I have a lot of football and this is human trafficking. And so we had this relationship, and we thought we were going to kind of do something, but it became something different. But I was super passionate about what they do because I thought they were so smart the way that they were tackling this. That instead of, there are a lot of people that love to be a part of the kicking the doors down and saving the girls. And like, actually, there's this dude who's the most like badass dude, man. He was an ex SEAL, and dude, I met him on our like men's group, and he lives here in Nashville, and he has something called Rescue One, and that's what they do. They go kick down doors and they save people. Well, Jeremy's thing does at Rescue Freedom, Rescue One, Rescue Freedom. Rescue Freedom is they find these safe houses that the kids once they're rescued get out of, and then they vet them to make sure that these people not only have the local connections they need, but they're doing, they're sustainable and they're doing good work, and then they fund them. And what they do is they fund a curriculum, and they provide money for counselors or to help these girls, mostly girls. It's also boys too, but these kids process through the sort of the horrific upbringing and there's time in slavery. And then they relaunch them, and it's fundamentally amazing what happened. So one of the things that ended up happening was last summer, I was just trying to stay involved in what was going on, and they asked me if I wanted to climb Mount Hood, because the whole thing with Rescue Freedom is it started because Jeremy went to India, and he went to a Christian college on like a Christian trip, and then part of their tour of India, they end up bumping into somebody who says, "Oh, you want to see what's really going on in India?" He's like, come to this place that my friend is running, where they're trying to take care of these girls that have been rescued out of the brothels. And he went to the red light district, and he saw what was happening there, and went and he said, we got to do something. They came back. He likes to climb. I've never climbed a mountain before. Him and his buddies like to climb, so they started something called Climb for Captives before Rescue Freedom. And the idea was they were all going to commit to raise money. It was 10 guys. And they were going to climb. I think that year was Mount Rainier in Washington. They were going to climb, and they were going to give the money to charity to help fight against human trafficking. So this was actually the 10th year of Climb for Captives. Climb for Captives still exists as sort of like a sub team of Rescue Freedom. But that whole experience for Jeremy spawned him into being like, we can really do something special, and starting Rescue Freedom. And so now year 10, I went with a bunch of guys. I didn't know anybody except for Jeremy on this trip, but there's a bunch of cool dudes that all climb and I don't. And then actually one other dude didn't climb, was John Luke Robertson from Duck Dynasty.
Oh yeah.
And so it was cool, man. He's a kid. Like, he guy's like 21 or 22. And so he like had a onesie, and we actually had a lot of fun. And we didn't actually summit. I was really disappointed and also happy we didn't summit. We got all the way to within 800 feet of the summit, like vertical feet. And this is the place everybody dies. So people die on Mount Hood. And I was actually reading a book before I climbed, not intentionally, called Deep Survival. Uh-huh. And it's a great book. I actually recommend it to anybody. Really, it's interesting because it talks about accidents and then who survives and why they survive. And case study number 1 was an accident on Mount Hood in '96, and I'm like, 13 people died.
Oh, and by the way, I'm about to go climb there.
I called Jeremy. I was like, buddy, have you ever heard about this accident '96? And he's like, oh yeah, that's a pretty famous one. He's like, I think a chopper went down and these guys fell and wiped out all these guys. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it was on Hood. He's like, yep, yeah, there's this spot. It's pretty gnarly. I'm like, oh my God, all right,
I'm out.
So we got to this spot, and it was so warm that you could see the crevasses started to open up on the mountain. And we were with these all experienced climbers, and I never climbed. And they're like, we're going to look at this. And there's this thing they call the death. I remember it's death something. And they're like, this is like, it would take us 3 hours to try to crisscross this. But it's still super sketchy for an experienced climber. So like, let's just call it here. All right, yeah, I for one am going to do that. So kind of bummed because I wanted to hit the top, but there's next year. And we raised $225,000 for the cause. Wow. And what's super cool about what Jeremy's doing, and so this is what I would say to people listening, is check out Rescue Freedom,
Yeah.
because they found a corporate sponsor. It's much like Charity Water does. They found a corporate sponsor that underwrote for the next 2 years all of their administration costs. So the people that work there that have to live and pay bills like you and I, all their expenses are taken care of. So the admin fees, but so every dollar that's raised or given goes directly, every cent from every dollar goes directly to helping those kids
That's awesome.
not only get rescued but recover. And then what's amazing is now they've been doing it long enough now in 10 years that they're finding girls that have been rescued out and relaunched are going and getting their degrees. And there's 2 girls in India that went and got their nursing degrees, and they came back and they work at the same safe house with other girls that have been rescued. We're breaking curses, guys, on these generations by taking these human beings that society has said aren't human beings. They're treated like transactional trash. And we serve a God who's in the business of redemption. And he's taking these broken children and he's redeeming them and he's sending them back to redeem more. So when the curse continues, these people continue to sell their kids. These kids are now coming out and turning into adults that are changing the lives of kids like them. And not only that, but they're coming out and they're getting married. Jeremy just went to his 4th wedding.
Wow.
This last, I think it was in October or November. I was talking about it because they did a fundraiser here in Nashville. And Donald Miller is his wife Betsy. He's an author, right? In Blue Like Jazz. His wife Betsy's on the board. So Don and Betsy are super involved, which is really cool also because you have this sort of artists and authors that are working together in this great cause, but they all went to this wedding. And it's talking about redemption, guys. You have someone who's been prostituted most likely by their own family or kidnapped into slavery, then prostituted, and basically told that they are trash that's worth only, your time is worth X and your body is worth Y, and that's it. Come out and get redeemed, and then are able to love a man enough to get married is full circle, right? I mean, it's that is a miracle. And so being a small little part of that was super cool. And climbing a mountain was an adventure. Not gonna say that wasn't selfish because it was.
Sure.
And I survived. And the night before I left, I proposed to my fiance.
That's awesome.
Because she would never see it coming that 8 hours later I'd be on a plane to Oregon. So she was like, "You got me, but why are you leaving?" I'm like, "Well,
Right.
we better make all our calls right now because I got to go to bed. Because in the morning I'm waking up and I'm going to climb a mountain."
Right. That's
anyway.
amazing. How can people find that? Is that just rescuefreedom.org? Or
Yeah, rescuefreedom.org. Yeah, and it's cool. People are doing some really innovative stuff. Some of their fundraising is grassroots, and it's like they have people that go hike. They don't climb. They hike for captives. And they'll put together a hike and they'll do their own little sort of fundraise where everybody raises a certain amount of money and they go and they do it. And it's amazing. And the things they do it's nice to have charities that do good work. It's really nice to have charities that every bit of your donation goes to the cause. And then they're also super good stewards of what they're given. Like there's the vetting process for them is really stringent. And so when they have vetted these places, these places are on the up and up, and this money is going directly to helping these kids and supporting something that's already functioning in that community. And that's the big thing for them too, is that I think a lot of times as being Americans or even just first world people, when we go into the developing nations where the stuff is really rampant, it's rampant here in the States too, don't get me wrong, but you go in these places and you think that we'll just build something and start something because we know how to do everything better, when what's sustainable is having local people and passionate about the cause, doing work on the ground and being a part of that community. And that's really what Jeremy and the crew are about over there. So it's a good deal, man.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I think it's pretty wild that the full circle, like you said, the girls are coming back, and also the strength to get married after what they've gone through. Like that, to me, speaks volumes for, what Climb for Captives and the Hiking for Captives and all that does for them. So we will definitely link up that to our episode description and our website so people can click on that and get to any portion of it.
And one other thing too, that for us believers, is that the curriculum that they teach is gospel based too. So not only are these kids being helped to recover, but the curriculum that's going through is based on the gospel. So they're hearing the message of Jesus Christ, which is twofold, man. People are getting healed by processes and also by Jesus, man. It doesn't get better than that. So
And on the gospel, Luke, so to move on to the next, one of the last points is everything that we've spoken about today and what you've been through, with your brother and the podcast you guys did,
Yeah.
and with your sports and your basketball and you going to Thailand, the Philippines and all that. What advice could you give to our listeners about brotherhood and seeking that through Christ? Like, what can you tell them? What has helped you through the high times of when you were in your business and the low times? Like, what advice can you give them?
That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly how to answer that, except that I'm sure that your standard church answer is that, like, just as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But this is the thing, man, is that, and I'm walking in this. I'm about to get married. Is that the older we get, sometimes I think we get more into our family units and involved there. But you cannot discount how important it is for men and women. But we're talking about men here, men especially, to have community with other men. It's just how we were designed, man. It's in our DNA. And not only that, but I think to have community that involves accountability. It's great. It's great to get together with your buddies. And man, I do that with two of my real good friends, Philip and Derek. We get together either Thursday or Friday morning every week because we all got engaged about the same time. We're all at the same age, and I'm the last one now to get married. So we walked through that together, and that's kind of an amazing thing to be my age at 36, and Derek's 35, and Phil's 37, and we all got engaged in about a 3-month span from each other, and then we all got married. And Phil got married in November, Derek in January, and I'm getting married in April. And to walk through that together, and that isn't unanalogous to just regular life with dudes, is that we all kind of walk through a lot of similar things, and to have a guy to have people that you can trust, that have your best intentions in mind, which means they're not going to ask you fluffy questions too. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that some of your best friends and your brothers should. They don't always do this, but they should ask you the hard questions, because really they want the best to come out of you, and the best to come out of you is you to face those ineptitudes and deficiencies and those places you fall short and deal with them, not push them aside. Because the more you bottle things up and push to the side, the more that festers, and the bigger problem it is if it isn't cut off directly there. And that's the thing. You got to be in community with guys that hold you to a higher standard. And if you don't have that, and that's something that I wanted in Nashville and hadn't had exactly, and now I'm really making an intentional part of what I do and how I operate, because that is how we grow, man. And I think also, even just we talk about brotherhood, I also think that it's important within that brotherhood to find someone older than you, like a mentor, and to really just, ask them questions, ask them dumb questions, ask them hard questions. Like, I mean, if they've gone through a lot of what you've already gone through, and they've got wisdom of doing the wrong thing possibly, or doing the right thing, and both of those are good answers. Because if it's the wrong thing, you just do that, and they probably know what the right thing is. And if it's the right thing, you say, that's what I do, right? That's the answer. But ultimately, man, I tell you what, man, I've got 2 brothers. I've got one that I don't have a relationship, and one that I do. And from a brotherhood standpoint, man, you do everything you can to hold on to people, man, and to love on them when it's hard. Life is short, guys. I always say is that, like, we get to walk through things in our life, and you want to have guys and brothers there with you. And I think if you don't, you recognize that hole. And even if you don't have any biological brothers, I think you recognize the hole you have, that we were meant for community. We are social beings. God created us that way. You know why he created us that way? Is we were created in his image. It means God is a social God. And a lot of people like to talk about the Bible. And one of my friends, and this is not a name drop, but it'll sound like it, one of my good friends is William Paul Young, who wrote the Shack. And one thing he said he was intentional to do when he wrote the book was to talk about we. They would say we, and actually Hebrews says that we created man in our image. So if God is a triune God, I'm not going to get into any semantics or theological debates or whatever about the Trinity. But if God is a triune God, that means that God has always been in relationship. And if he made us like him, we were designed to be in relationship. And part of that involves us being in community with other men. The Bible says it real explicitly. And I think if you don't have that, you should seek that out. And if you do have that, I think you should challenge that to be better than it is, and to ask harder questions, and to push you where you don't want to be pushed. This is like, dude, I'm finding this out when I work out. Listen to me, man. I love working out. But if I go by myself, I don't push myself super hard. I know that about myself. I don't go all out. But if I have to now pay somebody to yell at me, and I have to really have really have someone put some pride here and just say, yeah, you're soft. And I'm like, I know I'm soft. Oh, you're weak. I know I'm weak. I know I want to give up. I think that's not unlike what we can do with other guys, is that you want to have someone that really holds the bar, and not only holds the bar high, but just continues to raise the bar.
Yeah.
For you in your life, and you do the same for that. And that, I think, is brotherhood. It's knowing that not only do they love you, but they have your back and they have your best interests in mind. And that's someone you can always trust to have your back. And they talk about, was it you were in the military, right? You got to have someone that has your six.
Absolutely.
I wasn't, but I kind of wish if I was gonna do things over again. I had the guy tell me the other day that I look like an operator because I got this crazy beard going on.
Oh yeah.
He says you either got to quit doing shoulder workout, or you've got to shave that beard because you're not going to go undercover and save kids with me. It was the guy that saves the kids, and I was like, you say I look like an operator, man? That's cool. I'm not shaving anything, dude.
Right.
I'm gonna do more shrugs now. Anyway, dude, and I know you guys did a podcast about this, but I really can't emphasize enough that if you don't have community, you need to seek that out and make that happen. It's essential to how we were created, and there's an aspect of our masculinity. And this is where I may go on a tangent, just a real small, quick one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's interesting about what you guys are doing is that I've had this idea. It's been stewing for a while to do something that I was kind of calling the man cast. And the whole point was, I really believe that in 2019, in the environment in society we live in, there is an assault on masculinity. There's a lot of things that we were designed to be as men, and I think that's being watered down, and a lot of that's being taken away from us. And that's really inherent in our creation. This is going to make sense right now because I'm going to bring it together. Is that not only were we created a certain way by God to be a certain way as men, but an aspect of that creation as men was to be in fellowship and to be in relationship and to be in community with other men, pushing each other. It's different with a husband and a wife, and I'm learning that right now because I'm almost there. Different with a husband and a wife. That's a different relationship. That's the best reflection of your own self and your inequities you'll ever have in your life, and I'm learning that right now. But there is something to be said about iron sharpening iron, and men raising up other men, because we're warriors, and we were designed that way, and women are inherently created differently. And it takes a warrior to train up a warrior. It takes a warrior to sharpen a warrior, and it takes a warrior to train other warriors. And that's why we need mentors and we need comrades in this whole crazy thing we do called life.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, that is like the heartbeat of what we're doing here at Brothers of Merit. That is, I mean, everything that you just said is like exactly what we talk about every day. I mean, that's the vision of what we have here.
Well, let me encourage you guys then, and you guys are on the right path, and that this is an integral part of the message that needs to be out there.
Our mission is to inspire men to walk towards brotherhood through Christ. Like that's the whole goal, and we want to provide platforms and ways for people to get into that community. Because exactly like you were talking about, sometimes we find ourselves, whether we're 27, 36, whatever, and we're like, wait a minute, I know that everything that you just said, Luke, is true. I know that I need to be in community. I know that that's how God created us, and I don't know where that is. And so we want to just provide an avenue for that to happen, because we know that it's integral to our growth. And like you said, as men, that's how God works, and that's how God is going to, that's how God's going to make us all better, stronger, look more like him.
Yeah. It's part of our DNA, boys. It really is something we can't get away from. And I think no man was created to be an island, but we live in an isolationist society now where we spend more time on our phones, more time with non-face-to-face, non-personal relationships. Everything's become digital, but that's not a substitute for real community. So seek it out, man. Put the phones away, do some face-to-face, and ask some hard questions.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of cool because we have some things lined up for Brothers of Merit in the future, what we plan on doing, and it is away from the technology side. It's actually a face-to-face, group setting and brotherhood, and we can't wait. It's in the works. We're kind of drawing that. We're at the table right now putting it together, but we're stoked about it, and we're stoked that you came on. Seriously, like, Luke, this was awesome. Yep. And is there any last advice that you want to let the guys know before we head out?
No, man, just what? Life is like Jesus said, man, he began to bring us life and life to the full, and I think pressed into that's an important part of of being fully alive is the biggest part is Jesus. And I think there's a lot to be said for following his example. And man, I just want to encourage you guys in your vision that God's laid out for you. And this whole thing, you guys are just keep crushing it, man. That keep pushing, because this is a message that people need to hear. This is a message that guys need to hear. And this is something that I think, even in my own life in the last few years, I've realized that I've had a huge deficiency in, and making a priority. And I can already see the fruit of community with like-minded men. So keep on keeping on, boys. You guys encouraged me, and I appreciate you. I needed this too, man.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. We thoroughly enjoyed talking with Luke. It was an awesome interview. Got a lot of knowledge out of him, and the things he went through in his life were just amazing. You know, the things that he did not go through, and as in regards to he thought he was going to go to med school. He did pre-med, and he changed his path completely, and that's wild to me. I mean,
right. Yeah, and I think the main thing that I got out of just his whole story is just God's faithfulness through all of it. God's faithful in our lives, whether we are being faithful or not, and whatever situation that we're going through.
Yeah, definitely. So we will get back with you guys next week, and stay tuned.
See ya.
See ya.